Yo, what's up, everybody? It is Tuesday, September 23rd. Actually, did you know that fall officially started yesterday? Just thought I'd throw that in there. So, market was down today. I didn't know this, but a friend of mine told me. I knew that Powell was going to be talking today. I don't listen when he talks. I don't pay any attention, but a friend of mine told me that he was kind of bashing the market, saying it was overvalued. So, I mean, this is so classic. This is so classic Powell. I've been talking about this guy for a while now because he's something, man. He takes the cake. Like I said, they had to pull him into this rate cut kicking and screaming. I'm sure that he didn't want to do it because it makes him look like the loser to Trump. You know, Trump's been he's been telling him to cut rates for a long time. Powell has resisted, and now the FOMC voted to cut rates because of the job figures. And it was him, remember, at the Jackson Hole conference. He was the guy who said, well, we're shifting our priorities now from inflation to the labor market. So he kind of set himself up. And I'm sure he's really, really pissed about this. And they had to pull him in kicking and screaming to this last rate cut. I'm sure he didn't want to do it. And I even said to you guys, I said, watch what happens at the press conference after they cut rates, because he's gonna tamp down any kind of expectation for any more rate cuts because he's pissed. He didn't want to do it, and he sees it as a loss to Trump. He's petty, he's vindictive, he's an egomaniac, and he's arrogant. So today, my friend said in his Powell's comments, he's saying now the stock market is overvalued. So he lost out on the rate cut. That's how he thinks of it. I'm sure, man. And now, so he's got to go after the stock market. So now he's a market analyst. So the guy is really something. I don't pay any attention. This dip today, look, we had 2 days of fiscal drain, small ones, about 9 billion, 4.5 and 4.5 on last Friday and yesterday. No big deal. Tomorrow's a Social Security payment. But I believe either Thursday or Friday, we're going to have the big monthly tariff drain. So I think we could get a little churning in here of the market. One thing I should mention is that the last 2 days, I've seen a very significant increase in the daily customs taxes. Those are tariffs. So where we've been running like 375 million, 400 million a day, sometimes even less, like 320 million. That jumped up to 620 million, and I believe yesterday was like 715 million or 750 million, something like that. So those are high for individual days, which may be an indication that more of these tariffs are starting to kick in. Right now, the leading flows still a straight line up when you look at them year over year. But of course, I like to look at the year over year in the net government transfers. That popped up last week to the highest level since April 4th or April 10th. So that was a very positive development. But now we got to see what happens with these tariffs when this number hits either Thursday or Friday. So I want to say something, folks, because I think I must be a very, very incredible person. Really. And before you jump on me for that, let me explain why. Because I see a lot of comments in my comment section here from people who just kind of spew out, they just kind of regurgitate these talking points about printing money and inflation. And a lot of these comments that I see, they're very deeply cynical. And I don't like that that characteristic, cynicism. I think it's very negative. But I have to say that I used to be just like that. I used to be just like that. I was very cynical. I was very negative. Everything, whatever happened, I always had some kind of a negative slant to it. I would put a negative slant on it. I told you guys, you know, when CNBC first started that Squawk Box show back in the mid-90s, I was one of the first original regular guest hosts of Squawk Box. I used to come like pretty much regularly once a month on that show, sit next to the late Mark Haynes. He used to be the anchor. And I wish I still had those tapes, but I was like all these people, you know, America's bankrupt. We're borrowing money from the Chinese. The dollar's going to collapse, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm thinking to myself, because I see these kind of comments up here on the channel all the time, and people, you know, cynical, sarcastic, negatively sarcastic. Yeah, why don't we just print, you know, trillions and trillions, you know, stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I must be like a really incredible person because I was able to change my view on this. How the heck did that happen? Because I see people here like they're just very comfortable regurgitating out these points where maybe these opinions or points would be valid under a different monetary system, like what I talk about. Maybe they would be valid under a gold standard. Maybe they would be valid under a fixed exchange rate system. How did I, Mike Norman, how did I turn myself around to the proper understanding of these things? I must be an incredible person. Well, I am, but not maybe in that regard. Guess what? I have an open mind, and I listened and I learned. And when I learned, what I did was I went back and I rethought about my old views and started to see the contradiction in those views. I started to see the errors in those views. I started to see how those views never ended up in the empirical evidence, never showed themselves to be true, at least in the system that we have. And so I questioned. And when you question, that's also called the scientific method. You go back to the drawing board, you look at your theories, you look at your thesis. If it's not working out the way you think it should, time and time again, anybody, you know, with any intellectual rigor and who's a seeker of the truth is going to go back and at least examine why that's not panning out the way they thought. So yeah, that's what I did. And I know that's what a lot of you people did who came to me. You know how I know that? I got over 10,000 subscribers on this channel. Not that I'm bragging. I talk about a tiny little niche topic, which is economics, and within that topic, even smaller niche, which is MMT. I never had that. And if I go back and if I look at the comments and the thumbs up and the thumbs down from my early videos, which I think I started these things in 2009, I would have like thousands and thousands of thumbs down, okay? They're probably all like Peter Schiff followers, and maybe 1 or 2 thumbs up. That's all been reversed. So I know, and I'm not saying that to brag or anything. That's because of you guys. You guys kind of came along in the same evolution that I did. You started out as skeptics, and I know this too because some of you have actually written to me or posted comments saying, Mike, I used to hate what you said. I used to think you were an idiot, a total moron, and after these years of listening to you, I had to go back and rethink, and now I see that everything that you were saying was correct. So kudos to you guys who have come around and who have the open-mindedness to question things, that are not working out the way you think they should, and causing you to go back and rethink them. And there's still hope for the rest of you who feel comfortable in sticking with dogma, sticking with opinion that's wrong, because somehow that makes you feel comfortable in your worldview about how things work, or maybe because you're a cynic, or because, I don't know, you're miserable, or you like to play victim, so everything has to be blamed on something, on a system, on somebody, on printing money, on whatever it is. Instead of understanding it, instead of using knowledge for your benefit, that's what I try to do here. What's this channel about? Yeah, it's about MMT, stuff like that. But really what it is like, I'm trying to help you use information to your benefit. Even if you could only do that in a very small, limited way. I did a whole thing on this the other day where I said, look, isn't that better than nothing? Isn't that better than nothing? I think your mental attitude is really, really important. And I think it's really bad to play victim. I think it's really bad to walk around, oh, woe is me. I think it's really bad to blame externalities, people, systems, whatever, the structure, society. We have no control over that stuff. Right? It's like Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius. The only thing you can control are your own feelings, how you deal with things. And it's like, I'd rather, even if I could only use to a small extent the information that I help you with, even if I'm only able to use that to a small extent, that builds up over time. It doesn't always have to be small. It starts out small, it builds and builds and builds. But use it. What's the point of bashing it? That makes you feel better? Think about that. That does you no good whatsoever. So get rid of the cynicism, get rid of the negativity, open up your mind, learn things. Learn things in life. There's so much to learn. There's so much to learn. And to allow yourself to be brainwashed and indoctrinated because somehow you've twisted that into some kind of thing that makes you feel good. Because you can get to point to somebody else or some other setup where you say, hey, it's not me, it's this thing over here. They're printing money, or it's the Fed, or it's this, or it's that. Who knows what the hell? There's a zillion different excuses that people use. It's endless what they will come up with to rationalize it. I'm saying to you guys, I was one of those people. And I turned myself around. You know the old joke? I used to be hooked on the hokey pokey, but I turned myself around. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. And don't forget to go to my website, pitbulleconomics.com. Sign up for a 30-day free trial to MMT Trader. See you tomorrow. Bye.